Donald Trump did just sign an executive order today that is really, really scary. MSNBC is talking about it, so we're going to be covering that. We're going to be listening to them while playing a little bit of Donkey Kong. But before we do that, I want to go ahead and show you the fan art section here. This is Claudette. This is a concoction of Lass Arts. They said it is an orange Fanta flavored Suris. I guess Claudette because the orange ghost is named Clyde in Pac-Man. They sound like Suris's nasally mocking voice.
Silly me, I brought a great sword, not a polearm.
I guess that's how she sounds. If somebody gets off to that, that is their business, but that's weird. Anyway, as always, thank you all for your fan art submissions. If you want your fan art to be shown in a video, then drop it into the fan art section of the Discord. With that all said, let's go ahead and get right into talking about what we got to talk about today after we click away from that and also my signed Magic the Gathering Sonic the Hedgehog cards. Yeah, that's something that we're going to have to cover. So I'm trying something a little different. I'm not sponsored by Ground News, but, I'd like to be, so maybe they could give me money. But, so Trump signs an order ending cashless bail and making flag burning illegal. So on the left, this is being worded as President Trump signed an executive order to eliminate cashless bail, targeting jurisdictions with such policies by revoking federal funding. Trump's order encourages the Justice Department to prosecute individuals who burn the American flag, despite the Supreme Court protecting that act. Legal analysis doubts the effectiveness of Trump's order on cashless bail, as laws already allow exceptions for violent crimes, and critics argue that cashless bail disproportionately impacts low-income individuals and communities of color. All right, so how is this being covered on the right? They're just focusing on the fact that the executive order mandates local authorities to investigate flag desecration cases, and it affects the immigration status of foreign nationals involved in such actions. Trump aims to end cashless bail policies nationwide, again, calling these policies a disaster that endangers American citizens. So the right focuses on why Trump wants to do this, and the left seems to focus on the fact that this disproportionately affects people who do not have enough money to, live. And then on the center, you get a less biased view of this, but maybe not necessarily more true. That said, let's take a listen to what MSNBC has to say about this going forward.
Let's bring in some of our reporters and analysts standing by with us. Much to discuss with NBC News White House correspondent Yamiche Alcindor, also with us Dan Lamothe. He is a Pentagon reporter at the Washington Post. David Rothkopf, a columnist for the Daily Beast, and Christina Greer, associate professor of political science at Fordham University. So, Yamiche, the White House has taken several new steps in this so-called crime crackdown. The president signing right now an executive order on cashless bail. He says it'll start in D.C., but he wants to end it nationwide, as the administration also plans to deploy troops to other cities. Get us up to speed.
Well, this is really President Trump tightening his grip on Washington, D.C. The president is trying to use every federal tool in his toolbox to try to really exert power over Washington, D.C. What we're seeing right now as he's signing this executive order is the president essentially trying to force Washington, D.C. to do away with its cashless bail system, which has been in a policy of the city since 1992. I can also tell you that the crime rates since 1992 have fallen. Essentially, what cashless bail says is that if you are someone who is charged with a crime, money is not going to be the reason that why you're free or not free. It's going to be whether or not you are someone who's seen as violent or as a flight risk. It gives judges the discretion to do that. We've also seen.
Okay, so that is an important distinction to make there. Whether or not cashless bail is allowed, all that changes is who is allowed to get bailed out. That's all that truly changes in those scenarios. Yeah, all it means is that if you are an individual who gets in trouble, who gets prosecuted for a crime, who goes, or not even prosecuted, just arrested. There's a difference. You just get arrested. With cashless bail, you do have the ability to still be free until you are found to be guilty. And our current system does not allow, generally speaking, those same things to be given, those same freedoms to be given for people who have engaged in very violent crimes. That's our current system. By getting rid of cashless bail, all you're really doing is making it so that people who already don't have a lot of money get fucked over merely because they don't have a lot of money. Like, that's exactly what ends up happening. You don't have a lot of money, and so you weren't able to pay your car insurance, so you get arrested. Cashless bail says that you are able to at least pop out without having the money on hand, so that you can start earning the money not only to pay for your car insurance, but also to take care of what you have to pay now in fines. The reason that I bring that up as my example is because that's the example that I had to deal with. That was what happened to me. I had lost my job, or not lost my job, I had actually left my job for another job. But instead of being able to start that job as soon as I ended my previous job, I had to wait about a month and a half. The reason I had to wait about a month and a half is when I sat down to do my interview and I knew that I had the job, everything was done. They said that they needed my birth certificate. My ex had taken my birth certificate, ostensibly to be used as collateral for something when we broke up. I guess that they weren't able to find the title to the car that I had given them, and that was what they wanted to use, but I'm uncertain because it's been multiple years since the event. But the end result of that was that I didn't have access to my birth certificate when I needed it. And because I didn't have access to my birth certificate, I then was jobless and needed to get a new birth certificate sent to me, which, if you've ever had to do that, can take upwards of a month. It can take a week or it can take a month if you are not living in the state that you originally were from. And I don't live in the state that I grew up in. Axo, thank you for redeeming your hydrate. So I had to file with the state of Florida to get a new version of my birth certificate sent to me. And as a result of that, I got sent to jail. Because when I drove, I didn't have money for Uber, I didn't have any of that shit. When I drove to my job, to the orientation day, on the way back from orientation, I got arrested. And I got arrested because the police ran my insurance, found there was no insurance when they were running my plates as they were behind me, and sorry, officer, I don't have enough money and I'm in a bind and I don't know anybody in the city I'm in, so my options are limited to basically nothing right now. Like, those excuses do not fly with police. They do not give a shit about your personal hardships. They simply care that you broke a law, and they will have no fucking mercy, and it's frustrating. AltFact says, did you try telling him you were sovereign? No, I don't have that level of mental anguish in my life. I'm not quite that stupid. So I had to spend a night in the Paulding County jail cell. Now, luckily, I was able to actually get bailed out. A person who used to be a friend of mine was able to answer the phone and was able to drive to my city and was able to bail me out. So I ended up owing them the bailout money and ended up having to take care of my car impound. My car getting impounded costed me about $1,000 between the increased insurance premiums that I had to pay in order to get the car out and the actual money for getting my car out of impound. All of that costed a fuck ton of money. And then, of course, I had the fines afterwards. I had $2,000 worth of fines that if I did not pay, I would be sent to jail. So I had to save up a ton of money in order to not get sent to jail, while also having to borrow a ton of money in order to have a car so that I could get to work, which I then thankfully had. All in all, a bit of a nightmare scenario. So when I hear that Trump is trying to go, well, we need to get rid of cashless bail, it makes things more safe for everybody. No, the fuck it doesn't. No, the fuck it doesn't. What about people like me, whose literal crime was not having enough money to live? And the reason that I got caught not having enough money to live was I had the audacity to try to take the steps I needed to take in order to have enough money to live. And my punishment for that was about $3,000 total of fines and payments. Fennec says they want to criminalize poverty. That's been a thing that our country has been trying to do for a long, long time. America as a country, as an experiment, has been spending a lot of time trying to figure out how to make being poor a crime. And we do it in a variety of ways. States that make it illegal to sleep in your car, they've made being poor a crime. What kinds of people sleep in their car? Two types of people. People who are traveling and people who don't have money. People who are traveling sleep in their car because it is cheaper than a hotel. And people who don't have money sleep in their car because they don't have money for a home. When you make sleeping in your car illegal, the only thing you're criminalizing is being poor. You are saying that legally you must go find a hotel room. Legally you must go find a shelter where any number of abuses can happen to you. If you remember, years ago on my channel, we actually had to do a rescue of a trans woman who had been sexually assaulted in her homeless shelter. I had to take a bunch of time off streaming, and y'all ended up funding me getting in my car and traveling down to Florida in order to rescue a person who did not need to be in the fucking country in the first place, because she had a partner in New Zealand and would have rather been over at New Zealand. Y'all, as a community, helped pave the way for us to rescue that person. That was Arachne. And I'm not saying that situation to toot my own horn. That's not the fucking point. The point is, that situation is not uncommon. And I'm only one person. I literally do not have the capacity to save everybody. God fucking help me if I did. So when I see shit like cashless bail being attempted to be stripped away, all I see is a policy that says, hey everybody, you get to be punished for not having enough money. Because we have a variety of crimes in the United States that ought not be crimes, but still are crimes. Or we have crimes that are so small that they shouldn't warrant being stuck in a jail cell. But that still ends up being the case, that still ends up happening. Dan says, how is she doing these days? As far as I know, doing really well. We don't talk a ton, but I figure if anything more bad was happening, I would hear about it. Switzerland says, funny because rich politicians, all they do is crime. Yeah, but Switzerland, you're where they keep their money, so maybe look in the mirror. Maybe you're part of the problem, Switzerland. Maybe your offshore bank accounts are why this can happen. I blame you. Anyway, continue.
Just in the last year, the DC mayor actually pushed for even more expanded detention. So the DC mayor has in some ways already tightened the grip in terms of detentions. The president also going to be signing a second executive order targeting nationwide cashless bail. And that's going to be looking at states like Illinois, which of course has Chicago. It's a place that the president has targeted over and over again. And what that executive order says is that the president wants his staff to go through and find every jurisdiction, every state that has a cashless bail system, and then he wants to find federal grants or programs or a way for the federal government to take money away from those states or cities to try to force them to end their cashless bail system. Now, the president just said that this is really a dangerous system that puts people that are on the street and violent criminals on the street. Experts and people who are against a cash bail system say that really cash bail systems, all it does is hurt people who are low income. People might spend years, months in prison that aren't any more violent than someone who just had the money to get out of prison. So experts say that the cash bail system just really doesn't work, and that's why DC and other places don't have it. It's definitely going to be another fight here because Washington, DC is now going to have to decide if it wants to follow through.
Remember, Donald Trump is not on your side. Like, you, the United States voter, he's not on your side. He's on the side of money. He's always been on the side of money and fame and ego. These are the things that fuel him as a president. And because these are the things that fuel him as a president, there is very, very, very little surprise on my face when I hear that he wants to get rid of cashless bail. When I hear that he wants to do things that do nothing but hurt the impoverished in America. Who are the types of people who are more likely to do crimes? People who don't have money. Because most crimes involve something where money is concerned. Theft is a crime about money. You're a have-not, you see a have, you want to have the thing. Or in some cases, you need the thing. and you resort to theft in order to get the thing. Violence. Which groups of people are more likely to engage in violence? The impoverished people. People who are constantly dealing with everyday stressors. Literally, they exist in a world where their cortisol levels are raised and they never get to go down because they are always in fight or flight mode, because our brain literally puts us in fight or flight mode when it says that we don't have what we need to survive. And that's all our brain understands. That's just a part of how our psychology has evolved. You get those people who are going to be predispositioned to having responses that are less than fruitful, not through any fault of their own, but merely because they are in a high stress environment all the fucking time. And when people have fewer resources, when people have higher stress, when people have less to lose, the likelihood that they will engage in violence goes up. If Trump wanted to make America safer from violence, he would look at the systemic causers of those violence. He would look into raising up Americans who do not have the money to eat, who do not have the money to be comfortable, who do not have the money to live in the house that they would prefer. He would look into raising up those Americans, because that's how you lowered those violent rates in the States. You look at the systemic causes of violence, as opposed to trying to figure out, how can we punish it more? How can we punish it more than we did? How can we hurt people more? That doesn't help anybody. But Trump nonetheless wants to do that. Anyway, let's
with this, or if it might lose even more federal funding than it already has on it.
And Christina, what is your reaction to this cashless bail executive order?
Well, I mean, it's part of the president's agenda of his revenge tour on cities that are honestly led by African-American leadership. I mean, we see the cities that he's targeting: Baltimore, Chicago, Los Angeles, and Washington, D.C. As he continues to defund so many parts of this country and really weaken the economy in so many communities throughout the country, it will just further his agenda to militarize certain communities. I mean, this is frightening at best, in the sense that so many people in the Republican Party are standing by while the president uses the power of the executive order to take rights away from citizens of this nation. I think it is incredibly important to really look at the cities that he's targeting, because his image of cities, especially cities with large Black populations, are seen as these criminal entities. And as the data continues to show, and you've laid that out quite clearly, so many of these cities, obviously they are not perfect. They're large cities with millions of people, but, the trend has been downward. And so as he continues to defund so many aspects of this nation, he's only making cities less safe on so many different levels.
And we'll continue to monitor this. He is expected to potentially take questions, so we'll dip back in at that point. But Dan, the other big development we've been following is the National Guard troops there in the nation's capital overnight now starting to carry firearms. It's already been a couple of weeks, of course, with troops on the ground there. What is your understanding of this change? Why arm them now?
And militarizing fucking National Guard in D.C. is wild.
I think we're looking at a couple things here. One, the number of National Guard in D.C. has increased over the last several days. I think there's a question over how they may be used, whether they'll be sent into other neighborhoods. Some of those neighborhoods, I think, do have a fair assessment, would be at least a greater security risk to the guardsmen. I think another read here is the guardsmen, I think, are also under some degree of risk. They are kind of stuck here in the middle, and they are a target as well.
And you've also been closely following the White House plan to crack down on cities like Chicago, including using it as a way to ramp up deportation efforts. The president talked a little bit about Chicago even in this Oval Office moment. So how is this supposed to work there in Chicago?
Yeah, the Washington Post scooped on Saturday that there is active planning to send troops to Chicago. It could be National Guard. It could be active duty. The most likely scenario is that we would see National Guard, something akin to the deployment we saw in Los Angeles in June. If that were to occur, you're likely very quickly going to run into the legal contest. There is still an active legal battle over whether the deployment to Los Angeles was legal.
Right, that is still pending. The president claimed otherwise. David, in your new piece, you write about the ways the Trump administration is, as you describe it, trying to transform the government into a weapon to serve its grievances. How does this crackdown in D.C. and perhaps beyond fit into that strategy?
It is very, very telling to me, the way that they're wording this. And I don't think it's a disingenuous way to word this. The idea of the United States government's military wing being used as a way to just solve the grievances that the government has with its own citizens. This is what you expect despots to do. This is what they classically do. Get the military involved with civilian affairs, use them to police civilians, and then the end result of that is really, really agitating as well. The end result of that is that people who watch the military leave then become conditioned to military occupation in their fucking cities. So as you start to militarize the police more, it is more likely that citizens will react positively to a militarized police force. Because after all, they've already dealt with so much worse. Why should we have to worry about the police being the ones that are in charge now after we've already dealt with actual military occupation? Surely they're better, and maybe in some ways they are, but that doesn't change the fact that you are conditioning people to deal with military occupation and then militarizing the police so that that becomes the new norm for everybody. That's not okay. That's not a good thing.
Well, the president is trying to arrogate all power in this country into himself, and then to impose his will across the country without any regard for the laws that have governed the country for the past couple of hundred years. He has complete contempt for states' rights, complete contempt for cities, complete contempt for voters. I thought it was very telling in the brief bit that you showed before we came on that the president, made this little aside like, well, some people say they would like to have a dictator. Why would he say that?
Yeah,
Because
that's another thing that I was seeing.
I
I saw that shit on Twitter. The post of Trump saying that some people want a dictator. Let me see if I can find that for you real quick, because that shit is wild. Check this shit out. Sorry, I saw it on Blue Sky, an app that doesn't suck as much.
Chicago's a killing field right now, and they don't acknowledge it. And they say, we don't need him, freedom. He's a dictator. A lot of people are saying maybe we like a dictator. I don't like a dictator. I'm not a dictator. I'm a man with great common sense, and I'm a smart person. As you all know.
So first of all, common sense just means you have predispositions. That's all that means. Secondly, you're not a fucking smart person. Thirdly, I'm not the one saying that I would want to be a dictator. Other people are saying that. It's other people that are saying that I would like to be a dictator. Yeah, some people. Who are they? Are those people in the room with us? I'm not a dictator. Trust me, bro. Trust me, bro. I will never be a political despot. Never. Just trust me, bro. Trust me.
Clearly, we are in the midst of seeing a police state established in the United States with one man, not the law, one man guiding the actions of that police state and lying about it. Because the other thing you saw in the clips we've seen just now is Trump issuing forth a tsunami of lies about the situation, about what he's done, about what has happened since then. He's lying to protect the fact that he is initiating this police state reality in the United States of America.
And Christina, you touched on the fact that so many of the cities that he's targeting have black mayors. And when you look at the facts, 13 of the 20 U.S. cities with the highest murder rates are actually in Republican-run states. So how do you square what's going on here?
Well, he doesn't need to square it because his supporters don't need facts or evidence. They just need the president to say it and repeat it. I mean, what we're looking at is, in so many ways, Donald Trump is a political arsonist. He sets the fire and then he comes in and says that he saved the building. And so what he consistently does is create problems. I mean, he's both the hero and the victim of his own story, but every accusation that he makes is a real confession. he knows these cities, if they're struggling economically, it's because he's defunding said cities. He says that, museums are the problem. It's because he wants to erase realities of American history. And so obviously, so many of the cities with black mayors are in states with Democratic governors. We think about, New York City, where it's looking like we might have a progressive mayor January 1st with our Democratic mayor or Democratic governor, Kathy Hochul. We've got Pritzker, who's looking, more and more like a 2028 contender in Illinois. You've got Gavin Newsom, who's also in conversations about 2028 running for the presidency. And so these are specific targets. And we've also seen Donald Trump now starting to go after people he perceives are his enemies. And so, we saw it with Tish James, the Attorney General of New York. We're seeing it with other African-American women across the country. But this type of targeting, especially on an individual level, not just for Democrats, but now even people from his own party who dare to speak out against him, we're entering into an authoritarian regime. I think we're already there. And as was said, when he says these little asides, some people say they want a dictator. It's because he is surrounding himself with courts and members of his own party in Congress who are abdicating their own power to let him run roughshod.
Yes, some people say, some people are in the room with him.
Things that many Americans thought were laws, we now realize are just norms. And things that are laws, we recognize that we don't even have the institutions that have enough people to enforce many of said laws. And so the brakes and the levers to curtail some of this power weakening on the daily basis, especially as he signs executive orders, giving himself more and more power over cities.
Even during this executive order signing session, if you will, what we were just witnessing there, as Christina was talking, I'm told was somebody giving him an honorary U.S. Marshals Service badge. David, it seems like he is surrounded by people in his cabinet and beyond who are just reinforcing these kinds of instincts that the president has to take over.
It's yes men. He surrounds himself with yes men.
That was his purpose all along. It's why he picked a group of people that were widely regarded as incompetent or sycophants. He's been planning to send troops into American cities since he was the president the last time. Remember, when the BLM protests started, he wanted to send in troops. He wanted to shoot protesters. And then his Secretary of Defense and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs said no. So what did he do this time? He looked for a bunch of patsies who would stand around, say, yes, sir. Isn't it beautiful that you're sitting in this gilded office with these idiotic trophies around you? And we'll do whatever you want. Sadly, the Supreme Court of the United States and the Congress of the United States have also been completely passive in living up to their constitutional responsibilities. And as a result, this one guy with this kind of crazed agenda, who's getting more crazed on a daily basis, is actually able to impose his will on the country. And very, very few people in positions of power in Washington are standing up to him.
It's just fucking wild. It's just fucking wild. Said he has a cult? Yes. Yes. So I want to look at even Fox News's version of the flag burning fiasco. Even Fox News. Let's take a look at this shit. Let's take a look at this shit. This is just dumb and silly to me. Shouldn't be, but it is. President Donald Trump and his administration are likely to challenge the Supreme Court ruling that protected the flag burning of the American flag under the First Amendment with a new executive order calling for those who desecrate the U.S. flag while inciting violence or breaking other laws to face prosecution. Make no mistake, that's the first step. That's always the first step. Well, you're not allowed to burn the flag while inciting violence. And then the next step is burning the flag is inciting violence. The executive order, which Trump signed Monday morning, so this morning, directs the Attorney General to prosecute those who violate laws in ways that involve desecrating the flag and to pursue litigation that would clarify the scope of the First Amendment as it relates to flag discretion. Fox News even points out that burning the American flag has already been litigated. The Supreme Court ruling in 1989 that burning the flag is a form of symbolic speech that is protected by the First Amendment has already happened. Then there's a quote that says, I think the president is saying that he's ordering General Pam Bondi, the Justice Department lawyers, to prosecute those who maliciously burn an American flag. maliciously burn an American flag as opposed to lovingly burn an American flag. They get to determine that intent, though. That is what they get to do. Trump gets to determine. Pam Bondi gets to determine. The people in charge get to determine what level of maliciousness you had. Because they magically have the ability to read into your brain. Even Fox News is going, man, this shit was already litigated on. What the fuck are you talking about? In 1990, the Supreme Court reaffirmed its prior rulings while invalidating Congress's Flag Protection Act of 1989, which lawyers passed in response to the Supreme Court's Texas versus Johnson ruling. But bear in mind, the current Supreme Court is a Donald Trump-appointed Supreme Court. And because it's a Donald Trump-appointed Supreme Court, he's gonna get his way. You think Clarence Thomas is gonna look at that and go, well, actually, it's free speech? No, he's gonna look at it and go, my bank account's looking awfully light, sir. Thanks for your contributions. That's what's gonna happen there. That's what's going to happen. They are going to be able to determine when a burning of an American flag is happening solely because of what they deem is malicious intent and prosecute us as a result. It's a direct violation of free speech. My free speech, your free speech, our free speech in the United States is under threat, and not in a, well, they're telling us that we got to use the right genders for the transes. No, not in the stupid conservative, I have half a brain cell and don't know how to articulate my speech way. Our free speech is under threat in a real, we've already ruled something is okay in the Supreme Court, and Donald Trump wants to undermine that way. You should probably be contacting your local politicians. You should probably be going on 5 calls, like right now. You should probably going on to ResistBot right now. You should probably be getting in contact with your local DSA chapters right now. This morning, Trump said that your rights don't matter. You should start figuring out how to organize to tell him that they fucking do. Hey, thanks for making it to the end of the video. I really could not do any of this without all of you. Those of you watching, and especially those of you who support me on Patreon. I wanted to go ahead and take a minute to thank all of you who do that, because with YouTube being what it is these days, I really cannot do this full time without the support from each and every one of you. Those people would be Red Joker, Purple Poundini, Jemshin, Britzkrieg, Jupe the Malignant, Michael, Ravalern, Mabbity Babbity, Astral Frontier, Tales of Atonement, Nixie Chan, Kiri Artemis, Limor Pinku, Love Bunny Games, Victorian Alchemist, I'm not saying the last part of that, and you know that, Aurora, Leela Ururaka, Arcton Arclacier, Curatorian, Dren Hadamata, Jordan M, John L, Lord Bleck, Smiling Game Master, and Fireshard. Thank you so very much. But since you're here, why not go ahead and try watching another one? There should be one that's on the screen right now. And if you are a patron of mine, I wanted to go ahead and thank you again for all of your support. There is still a video you could press though, if you'd like. I would appreciate it just a little bit.